Welcome everybody to this special Easter edition of Small Town Underground. I don't know if you want to consider this a situational awareness episode. Most of the time, that's just designed as sort of a podcast where I put up pictures. This one's just going to be a little bit different. So I'm calling this one My 9/11 Story because I feel like it's important, especially after the interview that Tucker Carlson just did. So I'm recording this tonight because I had written down an episode about 9/11 almost 2 years ago, and for whatever reason, whatever kept me from doing the episode, right? I guess as we grew and got further and further in and more guests and more politics, I just kind of put it on the back burner. But after watching this Tucker Carlson episode, I felt super compelled to do this. And it's funny because it seems like there's always something in the way, but I'm going to go with it. I've decided to record this so that I can get out my story because I've argued with people for a long time about 9/11. Horrible, horrible tragedy. And people always get hung up on the narratives that, well, if you're a tinfoil hatter, you don't think 9/11 happened, and that's was never the case. Everybody knows that what happened on that day happened, okay? But people debate on whether it's an inside job, whether our government knew about it, how did the planes take down the buildings, so forth and so on. And so I feel like it's important, and a lot of people ask me where I come from. So this is the coming of the black pill, red pill, whatever you want to call it. This is the moment because I was just 21 years old in 2001 when this happened. And so I, at the time, and like I said, this is my story, and this is what sparked everything in my life that brought me to this moment right here, doing this right now. September 11th, 2001. I was working in retail, and I had just got a promotion that required me to move away from my home. And so I decided to take it. It was a fairly large promotion at the time, and I was going to be working in a big city, and I was going to be moving and away from my little small town, and I was going to go to Birmingham, Alabama, which is a fairly big city, and working in a little suburb called Hueytown. And so it was a big, huge deal for me going up to that. I believe that I had moved there. I'm pretty sure it was early August, sometime after July, sometime within August. It definitely was before September, but it was in the month of August. So I just threw caution to the wind. I went and found an apartment and moved myself to Birmingham. And I wanted to see if I could do it on my own. It was a hard store. It was a hard move. I was going to a completely different place where I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything about it. I was had to learn my way. Had nobody but myself to depend on. And so I decided to do it. And it was definitely a learning experience, right? So when I first moved there, the district manager had set me up a hotel room that was paid for until I found a place to actually rent. So I lived for about 3 weeks going into this new job in this hotel room. I finally found the apartment. We went back home, moved all my stuff back to Birmingham, right outside, I believe it was on the north side of Birmingham. And I still had the hotel room. Now on September the 10th, I was in my apartment, had just got all my stuff moved up. And I stayed up till probably about 6 in the morning, putting together furniture, opening boxes. I didn't have to work for a couple of days. So I just spent that time. I just stayed up all through the night, just had my record player, and was just playing tapes, records, just putting together all this furniture, and didn't have any cable back then. Cell phone was literally the flip phone. I had a little Kyocera flip phone. And the coolest thing about it was it had this crazy blue LED light up screen on it, and that was it. You could barely use it unless you were really close to the interstate. So I had nothing, no communications, no anything, no TV, no nothing. I mean, I set up my TV, maybe a VCR, but I remember it was actually daylight coming up when I went to bed. So like I said, September the 10th, and then I'm up all night on the 11th. And when I start to see daylight, I finally just pass out. So I woke up, and it was somewhere around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay? And the time, don't quote me on the time, but it was just roughly, it was definitely in the afternoon. And I was supposed to go and meet with another store manager and his wife, and we were all going to go eat dinner. So I got up sometime when I remember around 3 o'clock, got in the shower, and took off. And I went back because at the time I still had my hotel room. I had it until, I think it was until that Monday. So some of my stuff was there, and I was going to get everything out, check out, start living in my apartment. And when I got to the hotel room, I didn't do anything but pick up the phone, and I called my friend. He was at work, and they were supposed to get off at, I think, 5 o'clock, and we were supposed to go eat. So I made the call. And as we were talking, and I'm just chipper and like, yeah, I slept. I was crazy. I stayed up all night putting all my stuff together and blah, yada, yada. And he's like, yeah, that's really crazy what happened today. I can't believe it, And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, what do you mean, what am I talking about? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about, man. What happened? He said, you didn't hear about the planes going into the buildings of the World Trade Center? I was like, no. Now, I'm going to pause right there because I might have been the last person in the entire world that knew that September 11th had happened, okay? I was asleep the entire time, didn't know anything about it, didn't have any communications, had no cell phone, no TV, no nothing, and I did not get up till that afternoon. And so I didn't live through 9/11 like everybody else. I actually slept through 9/11 like everybody else, but I turn on the TV, and at first, the moment I'm feeling this, and I'm like, man, I'm thinking, oh, it's just another tragedy. I turn on the television, and boom, lo and behold, before my very eyes, I'm watching all the events of that morning and early afternoon unfold right, in front of me all at once. It wasn't where I was living through the moments of it like so many other people were doing. The entire thing, I was just seeing the reruns and the reruns of the planes crashing, the reruns and the reruns of the buildings coming down. All of this had already happened. And so I got really sick in my stomach. I was just sitting there looking at all this going, oh my God, like I couldn't believe that I'd slept through all of this. And I had no knowledge of it. And so I believe we had an hour, maybe hour and a half before we met up that evening. And so I just glued myself to the television. I just glued myself to the television watching all of these things unfold over and over and over again, just every single channel. I mean, it was just, thoughts were racing in my head. Like, I can't believe I missed this. I mean, like, it's probably why I became a prepper, because I was asleep at the wheel. But anyway, what I was awake for at the moment, right, was Building 7, okay? I was awake during that time, and when the main focus was on Building 7. And at the time, I had no idea what the Twin Towers looked like, how the layout was, what in the heck was Building 7. For all I knew, a plane had hit Building 7, right? I just saw that there were some fires on some of the floors, and they were going to have to bring the building down. Now, I was awake and watching this. They were talking about, yes, they're going to bring this building down. Okay? The building didn't get hit. They said it was severely damaged. They were going to have to bring this building down. So that's what I saw. That's the first thing that I saw, and it stands out in the front of my mind. Building 7 will always be the first thing that comes to mind because it was in live what I lived through was Building 7, okay? Everything else was a video, a rerun, over and over and over again. So I stayed glued to the TV and I watched Building 7 come down live as they were reporting on it. Not been hit by a plane, nothing, they had to bring it down because it was severely damaged. So I've thought about this for years. I mean, we think about this stuff all the time, but at the very, very beginning of this journey of 9/11, because I imagine if I'd have been awake all day and living through every moment and every new thing that happened and all the new information, hour, you'd have so much to focus on, right? But mine started at Building 7, and that's why this is so crazy to me, because I could not understand what does that even mean, a controlled demolition. Now, I had no idea. I am sitting here at this time in my head, we are under attack. Planes have flown in the building. These planes brought these buildings down, okay? These planes crashed in this building, and the fire was so hot, and the planes caused the buildings to come down. But Building 7 was like, why? What are we talking about here? Why is this happening? And I'll never forget, after it was time for me to leave, I wasn't even that emotionally invested in all of this because I had missed most of it. I was asleep. So I went on to dinner, and I remember it being a somber dinner. And rightfully so. There wasn't a lot of traffic, even in the big city. There wasn't a lot of people out eating. There wasn't a time to celebrate. And me, I was full of energy. I was full of energy, and I had slept all freaking morning, and I was just, and I knew I couldn't act crazy or nothing, but it was very somber. And my friends, they had been witnessing all this all day long. So, needless to say, it was a very somber atmosphere, and continued that way for days. I'll never forget, in my store, we ordered a bunch of the crepe paper, the crepe paper that you would put up around like school boards, red, white, and blue. And to show our patriotism, we put somebody at the front of the register for everybody that wanted one, and we would cut out about 2-foot strips of red, white, and blue, and we tape them together and tell people, put them on your antenna. I mean, we were going to town. We went through rolls and rolls of crepe paper because everybody wanted these. 2 feet long, just rip them off, throw some tape around it. Here you go, put it out on your antenna. Fly the American flag colors. And we just came up with the idea, and we did it. And for days, we were all just watching from that moment on the rubble and the lives lost and the reruns, and everybody can't understand why, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon, and so much confusion. And so that was my story. That's my 9/11 story, and I find it a little intriguing because I wondered to myself, was I the only person that slept through 9/11? Was I the only person? I felt like I was almost on a different dimension than everybody else because I did not experience it. But what I did experience was Building 7. So, needless to say, my curiosity was always, what is Building 7? Now, of course, they say that the building was damaged, had too much fire damage from explosions in the other buildings. Now, you can go back. I've got magazines still from 20 years ago. You can go back and look at the layouts, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense that would be the only, if that was the case, that would be the only building that would have been brought down controlled, right? Anyway, it was. And of course, I'm not going into conspiracy land tonight because there really is no conspiracy any longer. The conspiracy is that this was an organic attack that was planned out by people in a cave and by a man named Osama bin Laden, and that these planes flew into this building, and we lost countless thousands of lives, and those planes were single-handedly brought the World Trade Center down. Okay, that's the conspiracy. We're not going into that. We know better. And after, I guess the reason I'm doing this now, and it ties into Easter a little bit because I'm going to end with this, but the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I sat on this for 2 years, because I've put 20 plus years, like most people, into 9/11 and all the reports and everything that came out. But it wasn't until this Tucker Carlson episode, which I'm going to post a link in the comments, where he talks to Mr. Is it Weldon? Curt Weldon, who was the Republican that was on all the committees. He was the first whistleblower of this. He was the one scratching his head, the ex-firefighter, ex-firefight trainer, who was in charge of all these committees, and for years tried to scream this out to the American people, until the government, the CIA, the government, whoever, literally had his daughter raided by the FBI. He lost his election. He was basically thrown out to the wolves, completely eliminated from the 9/11 Commission and all of the data. And it's taken over 2 decades for him to be able to speak now. And he's coming out and speaking. Now, a lot of this stuff we knew back then. We've had years of data. But I want to play a small spot of this, and I could have played 5,000 clips, but I want to play this one because this one is pretty important to me, but we'll get into how I got into all this. So here we go.
But what began to make me wonder, and I have no idea what happened in 9/11, but it's very clear that there's a lot of lying around it, was the collapse of Building 7. And all the wackos would be like, Building 7, Building 7. I'd be like, shut up, wackos. And then if you just sort of look at it, you're like, well, that is very weird, actually. No plane hit that building. And does this happen a lot when buildings catch fire? Right, okay.
Besides being a firefighter, I work for the INA, largest insurance company in North America. I was responsible for training their fire protection arson people for 18 years. That doesn't happen. You never have a 47-story building just collapse, which this did. Even Donald Trump, I have a tape of him speaking on 9/11, and Donald Trump, which I'll give you a copy of.
I've seen it. Yeah.
In his own words, says that's controlled demolition.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks that way. I mean, look, I don't know.
See, here's what they did. They brought in NIST. They brought in NIST to do a report.
Can you tell us what NIST is?
NIST is the National Institute for Standards and Technology, to do an assessment. Now, they're like any other federal agency, and there are good people there, but there are people that want their jobs and want their careers, and they're not going to rock the boat. And they came out with a report that's hogwash. The University of Alaska, which is a very credible engineering department, did a full...
Okay, so you heard that, Building 7, which I'm so glad that they brought that up. But I want to get to another little spot here really quickly. I think it's right around this area, so we're going to start here.
This is the aircraft carrier shelter you seized.
1 second, folks.
Previously owned by a small faction of about 8.
You know, and they were looking for other firefighters like Ray Downey and the 342 others that were trapped and eventually vaporized. So something happened. Whether there's a high explosive material, I think it's called thermite, that is used to explode metal and steel and vaporize it. Tests were never done on that. There were some limited tests that found that there was some evidence of that, but the whole thing never was subjected to the kind of investigation that would be warranted when 3,000 people die. I mean, when you have 3,000 people die, you would think it would be a full, massive investigation, not going after 9/11, obviously, but what happened to the buildings and why'd they come down? They're the only high-rise buildings in the world that have ever come down from an airplane hitting them. And those buildings, I read the report from the architect who designed them. They were designed to withstand an airplane hitting the building and standing tall.
Okay, so I'm going to stop there. So obviously we know these facts have been around for a long time. And I urge everybody to watch this episode. It's a very important episode. So let me just move along so we're not rambling. So as all this happened is when I started to get more and more involved into independent journalism, right? There was a lot of stuff coming out. There was this little known guy at the time named Alex Jones, of course, Prison Planet, that actually was the only person ever that predicted that this very scenario would play out, okay? way before it actually happened. And you can go back there. The proof is out there. We don't. I mean, I'm past the point of even debating this any longer, right? So, but this was an inside job through and through. It always was. This was meant to usher in the Patriot Act and the new global revolution, the new world order that the Bush Sr. warned us about, the AI tech revolution that we're going through now, everything. 9/11 had to happen for that, for them to move forward in this post-industrial, post-transhuman world. Anyway, but having this information come out, and I wanted you to understand that just because they investigated all this stuff, right, there was so much in this interview to break down about how little they investigated everything, how they overlooked things were, how traitors in our federal government stole papers, stole all kinds of documents just to keep them in being the official record. Mr. Herndon not being able to even participate in this stuff, okay? But we were second-guessing this stuff for years, and there was a documentary that came out that changed everything. This was the beginning, and I'm not... I don't want to say the name of the documentary. The name is right up there if you want to read it, but this documentary was so powerful to me. This was one of these discs that were kind of like a police state, like an Alex Jones back during then. You know, YouTube was just getting started about 2006. Back then, if you had important information, you were putting them on, you know, DVDs and CD-ROMs, and we were using that kind of stuff, and you were passing them back and forth. And at the time, I was friends with a lot of people who could grab things off a line. And they had this disc, and it was this documentary. And I grew up in church my entire life, the structure of Christianity. I thought I had been saved. And as you got more and more down these rabbit holes, you know, and you have a complete half the factions telling you you're crazy, we're doing everything we can, the other half is screaming the obvious. So a friend of mine gave me this, and he said, dude, you got to watch this. And so I did. I watched it. And I think I was sick at my stomach for at least a week because my world had been turned upside down. I'd never seen anything like this before. It deals with, in religion, it deals with 9/11 and our monetary system. And I don't really even encourage anybody to watch this. I've probably watched it 50 times over the last 20 years. I keep revisiting it because it was this was what brought me to where I'm at today. This 9/11 and this particular documentary, and it's online. You can watch it, but it's not for the faint of heart because it will question your very existence. It questions God. I was so distraught because it seemed to answer so many questions that I'd had about God and religion growing up that nobody could ever answer. And so this is what turned me into pretty much an atheist. More I say atheist, it's easier to just say it. I kind of turned into this nihilistic person, like I didn't even care anymore if God existed, right? I was just done with it. I didn't care if God existed anymore after watching this because I was so messed up in the head. So I'm going to play a little bit of this documentary on the 9/11 part. And like I said, I will have any private conversation with you about this documentary. I'm not advocating anybody watch it. It's not for the faint of heart. It will test all kinds of things, and you know, especially the weak people like me. You know, that I was very weak back then. But I don't want to focus on that. But the 9/11 stuff. Let me just play a little bit of it. It's just a little insert.
Of thermite chemistry.
Molten metal pools under both towers after they collapsed, and Building 7. Now, Building 7 wasn't even hit by a jet.
Part of the problem is that most people simply don't know much about Building 7 due to the extraordinary secrecy surrounding this collapse.
And this was a 47-story skyscraper. This building fell at 5:25.
It was not hit by a plane. This building had fires on only 2 or 3 floors.
and it was brought down by what we know was a controlled demolition.
Demolitions, they look just like that. You know, a kink in the middle, and then that building just comes straight down, almost at free fall speed.
The law of conservation of momentum simply cannot allow for a progressive movement through resistance at the rate of free fall. Now, this next part is what I want you to listen to, because this has a lot to do with the Tucker Carlson interview.
Our office was on the B1 level. As I was talking to a supervisor at 8:46, and all of a sudden we hear, boom! An explosion so hard that pushed us upwards. And it came from the basement between the B2 level and the B3 level. And when I went to verbalize, we hear, boom! The impact of the plane on the top.
It would appear, Jim, as if there's more smoke coming from the ground.
I was down in the basement, came down, all of a sudden the elevator blew up.
And as we were coming out, we passed the lobby, there was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds then the first plane hit.
As I'm walking by the main freight corridor building, in the corridor, that's when I got blown. I mean, the impact of the explosion threw me to the floor, and that's when everything started happening. All of a sudden, a big impact happened again, and all the ceiling tile was falling down, the light fixtures were falling. You know, you got to go clear across the whole from 1 to 2 World Trade Center. And then all of a sudden, it happened all over again. Something else hit us to the floor. Right in the basement, you felt it. Walls were caving in, everything that was going on. I mean, I know of people that got killed in the basement. I know of people that got broken legs in the basement. People that got reconstructive surgery because the walls hit them in the face.
Okay, now for lack of time, I'm going to stop it right there. So, you believe your lying eyes? I mean, you know, I'm going to say is that I think you need to watch this interview, right? Because I would love for our President Trump to not only reopen the investigation, but let Mr. Curt Weldon, that's it. I let Curt Weldon back in. He's ready to go back in. He's got architects, firefighters, all of this stuff that was blocked from the commission and the investigation in the first place. So basically, you have to come to the reality that this was an inside job, that this was something that was done by our government. Now, you know, is it really hard to believe that? Is it still hard after all these years to believe? Is it hard to believe when all of the information is coming out about, CV-19, the fact that it was was let out on purpose, right? Well, I'm not going to go into all that, but if you look at all of these conspiracy theories that were labeled crazy theories that are now actual facts, right? And to have Curt Weldon come out here in 2025 and be silenced for so long, ready to tell the truth, right? And I know there's going to be some people that will deny this or say it's no big deal. It happened in 2001, but you got to understand the implications of something this massive happening, because the reality is a one world global government, a government that doesn't care about you, that wants to depopulate you, you are expendable to them for whatever reason that they want to move forward with. Okay? It's just a sad reality that we've been dealing with for so long, and this is why They use psychological warfare, fifth generational warfare on us, keep us fighting down here in the muck when this kind of stuff just keeps going forward. Real ID, the Patriot Act renewed, all of these land grabs all over the place, this post-industrial world, superficial, artificial intelligence, whatever you want to call it, transhumanism. It's been heading this way for a long time. And we're not supposed to trust our government. We're supposed to ask questions. We're supposed to demand the truth and transparency. But there's no doubt, absolutely zero doubt, there hasn't been in quite some time, that this was not an inside job. And I feel like that we're going to really, really get down to the truth in the next year or two, because sunlight is the best disinfectant. But I wanted to go back and revisit that because the whole linchpin is at Building 7. And I mean, we can talk all day long about the Pentagon and Shanksville, but answer me how on earth that they could have been prepared with a controlled demolition of Building 7 just so happened on the same day that 2 planes hit the Twin Towers, which were virtually indestructible to planes. I mean, I'm not rehashing any new territory here, but you need to watch the interview. It is very powerful and very moving, and it's just I don't know. We were vindicated about the jabs. We were vindicated about the Russian collusion. We were vindicated about Trump. We've been vindicated about so much. The Hunter Biden laptop. We haven't even been vindicated about Epstein, but we know that Epstein didn't. We know that himself. We know that they're still sitting on this stuff. Let me tell you, folks, this is evil all the way around. And going back to that documentary, it messed me up for a long, long time. And it took me years to come to grips with the fact that there is a higher power, that there is actually a God. And through every bit of this, God is working his way through, trying to win the hearts and the minds of the people, right? The people like me that doubted there's a God for so long. And for lack of time, I'm not going to get into all the things that led me back, right? Because all of these things, when you start, people say about UFOs, they say, well, the government's always said, we can't talk about UFOs because if they knew if people knew that there were extraterrestrials, it would upend religion and everything else. Well, I mean, the World Economic Forum wants to do that anyway. They want to create a artificial God and a one world Bible. They want to crush all the religions. I mean, that's their game plan. You think that they were stopping from doing that? They're just gaining more power and influence and structure for artificial intelligence to do that. But needless to say, I believe that God has been working through all of this to get the believers up and out of their seats and to stand up and not get on those train cars and to fight this spiritual evil, because this is a satanic spiritual evil, global. And it cannot be trusted. And I don't know what the answer is to all this, and I don't even know what we're going to get. I don't even know, I don't even know if I'm going to, the vindication of 9/11, right? What is it really going to do? It's not going to do anything. It's going to be the implications are far worse. I mean, you're going to have to wake up and realize that while we're down here fighting in the muck over all of these things, this was where your government was 20 years ago, okay? Now, honestly, I don't think that they planned it very well, because back then you had emerging technology, you had cell phones coming on, a lot more people, you had all the video surveillance and stuff, and they went to great lengths to try to get every bit of that and to hide it, just like they did January 6th, right? 40,000 hours of detailed videos, but yet we only got 400. I don't know. You get what I'm saying. They're trying to control every bit of this stuff and make you believe that that was an insurrection, They'll do everything they can to make you believe that this was an organic attack when it absolutely wasn't. The bottom line is we're trying to get to Saddam Hussein. We go into Afghanistan and create a 20-year war when Osama bin Laden was up in Iran to begin with. They could have got him anytime. He was on the CIA payroll, for God's sakes. So much to unpack there. I digress. I found that through all of these struggles and all these many years of looking through all this stuff, I realized that there is a higher power, and I'm thankful for that. And this Easter weekend, and however the stars aligned, and I've sat on this for a couple years, and here it is. I'm so thankful that I can say to you all that I believe that there's a higher power, that Jesus is real, God is real, and He has been working through all this, because we get so angry and upset when we see all this stupidity and idiocracy, knowing it's a spiritual battle, but realizing that the only way forward is to expose these things, is to let these things happen, because if they never happened, we would never see them. Okay? It sucks, to be honest with you. It sucks that we have to go through this, but it's a necessary casualty of a war, because this is the only way that people understand. And so if you go back and you watch this episode, this Tucker Carlson episode, and, the documentary, that's on you, It's a powerful documentary. It came out in 2007, and it's still just as powerful today as it was back then. And no, I'm not saying that it's 100%, and I'm not saying that you should follow you shouldn't. Because it can test anybody's faith. And it also deals with the monetary system exactly the way we've been dealing with it now. But I'm just thankful that God never gave up on me, and that my faith has been tested all these years. But anyway, I just wanted to share that story with you from my perspective, because, again, I never did live through 9/11. I lived through Building 7. And I had to go back. I went from Building 7 and had to rewind and see everything, whereas I didn't go through everything and come to there. So, watch Curt Weldon with Tucker Carlson and listen to what he has to say, because he's spot on and he knows what he's talking about, and hopefully maybe we can get the 9/11 Commission back open again, and we can get to the bottom of it. And it's going to be ugly. All of this is ugly, because every part of our government, every institution is ugly, because it's been taken over spiritually taken over. And but like it or not, whether you believe in God or religion or not, this is a spiritual battle. This is a battle that you can't see. It's all around us. And the next step is Agenda 2030. We'll get into that on another episode. Or, there's plenty of people talking about that, but we're not that far away. And if you pay attention to artificial intelligence, you realize that, we're only maybe 10, 15 years away from a full sentient, artificial intelligence. And that's just the way it is. And in our state alone, we've got data centers, huge data centers being built all over the place, right? What do you think they're doing? They're taking all this stuff and they're running it through their systems and their algorithms. They're just making this artificial intelligence stronger. And 9/11 was the catalyst that opened up the wound that they needed to jab everything they needed to do to us. All right, they're 10 steps ahead, 10 years ahead all the time. And believe me, they can war game it out. But 9/11 was an inside job. There is no debating that at all. And there's none. And either you're going to believe that or you just choose not to believe it. And ignorance is bliss, right? But anyway, I feel better for telling this story. I hope I didn't go crazy. I hope it's worth your time. But I urge you to watch that, and if you're so inclined, you can check out that documentary as well. It's broken into 3 different parts, and you can get a little bit of feel the way I did. I don't recommend it either because it's old news, right? And we're staying strong in our faith. But man, the more that we're finding out about everything around us, the lies and the deceit and the intentional, the gaslighting, the intentional destruction of our nation in order to bring us down, in order to usher in this one world government. And yes, Klaus Schwab, he's retired or whatever, but it's alive and well, and it's never, you're never going to get a time to sit down any longer. You're going to have to continue to stand up every day against everything until we get it either fixed right or we die trying. Because if we just sit back and be the useless sheep and let them do whatever they want to do, then that means our lives aren't worth anything, and there will be over anyway, guys. I mean, I hate to keep barking on this, but that's the plan, man. Depopulation. Get rid of us. And do you think they want somebody like me up here running my mouth about this? No, they want us gone. 1984, baby. Brave New World. I mean, this stuff has been written for a long, long time. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great Easter weekend. Please pray for me. Pray for the show. Pray for everybody around you. Pray for your enemies. Pray for your loved ones. And let's keep fighting. Let's keep fighting for a better tomorrow for our children and our country. And good night.